Since Kate is about to give birth, she and her husband John make their way to the hospital. She is escorted away while John remains behind to complete her paperwork. Kate begins to bleed immediately. Despite the presence of medical professionals, her husband is still absent as she awakens in an operating room. When the nurse breaks the news that her kid has died, she finds the whole thing weird and terrifying. It seems unbelievable to Kate. John enters the room and begins photographing the birth as calmly as if nothing had happened. She is given the baby by the nurse. In the middle of her scream, Kate snaps out of her slumber. Observing the scar on her abdomen, she stands up and walks to the restroom. A pill is taken by her. Kate continues her psychotherapy session the following day, during which Dr. Browning confirms that dreams are a common reaction to the traumatic experience of giving birth. Kate is confused about whether her nightmare was related to that or her impending adoption. She is concerned that she may not be prepared. When Kate confides in her therapist about her thoughts of purchasing alcohol, Browning reminds her that what matters is that she ultimately refrain from doing so. The therapist assures her that the decision to proceed with the adoption is ultimately hers to make. The deaf daughter of Kate's, Max, is being picked up from school by Kate. She nearly causes an accident while driving home because she moves so distractedly from a halt. At a later point, Kate is shown composing music on the piano. She steps outdoors in response to an annoyance and finds Max hurling a basketball against the wall. The child says sorry after her mother tells her to stop. When John and his wife Daniel get home, they play basketball and generally have a good time. As Kate puts Max to bed that night, she requests that she read a tale to her. The child's death is the subject of the narrative. Will she be getting a new sister? Max wants to know. Just before she turns in for the night, Kate pops another pill. John and she get into bed and discuss adoption plans. The decision has been taken, and they will proceed accordingly. Diving into an orphanage is something they do later on. Upon arrival, Sister Abigail greets them and instructs them to survey the area. John climbs to the second story, while Kate remains on the ground level to watch the girls play. He enters the room where Esther is painting after hearing a girl sing. As Kate and Abigail enter the room, she proceeds to tell him a captivating tale about the artwork she is preparing. After John introduces them, the conversation between the three of them keeps going. According to the child, she is unique and no one has ever approached her for conversation. In their eyes, she is a good person. Abigail is approached with the idea of adopting Esther. The people who brought her to the United States, she explains, died in a home fire. She was originally from Russia. However, Abigail finds the girl to be lovely overall. I concur, Kate. After 3 weeks, they get Abigail from the orphanage and bid her farewell. As they travel, Kate teaches Esther sign language. Upon arriving at the residence, Max is overjoyed to finally see them. Right away, Esther introduces herself and asks Kate whether she can hear her. The reason she can read people's lips, she explains, is because her hearing is just slightly impaired. Upon entering, they are greeted by Daniel and Grandma Barbara. On that fateful night, everyone showers her with gifts, except Daniel, who can't help but show his jealousy the moment the girl embraces John in gratitude. Joined by his companions, Daniel ventures outdoors to the treehouse, where they peruse racy periodicals. Barbara and Kate discuss Esther's impending return to the classroom, and Max as they watch Esther and Max play in the snow. Kate seemed to have let Barbara down. As Kate prepares to turn in for the night, a tempest is developing outside. Esther gets out of bed and walks over to Max's room. The two females come pounding on the door, requesting to sleep in John and Kate's bed, just as they are making out with John. John is the one that Esther wants to sleep with. The following day, while the kids are getting ready to leave for school, Esther descends the stairs dressed in a fancy dress, which causes the other kids to burst out laughing. When Kate asks Esther whether she is sure she wants to wear that to school, the girl assures her that being unique is perfectly fine. Kate allows her to put on the outfit. One of the students teases her later on as she is being welcomed into class by her teacher. On that particular day, Kate sprinted out to the icy lake to shout at Max and Esther, telling them it was forbidden. Daniel shoots a bird while playing with a paintball gun. Max is visibly distressed when Esther and she approach, but she consoles him by offering him a big rock and instructs him to end the rock's suffering. She takes care of it as he is too lazy to do it himself. Afterwards, Esther decides to soak in the tub. As Kate enters her room to sort her clothing, she discovers a battered Bible wedged in a drawer. While she peeks inside the restroom, she doesn't notice Esther peering out the door, and she discovers a man inside. Because of Esther, Daniel's classmates tease him at school, and he responds by knocking over her books. A classmate discovers her Bible as she rushes to get them. However, it slips from her grasp as they grapple for it, eventually falling to the floor. The girl reaches for her collar and calls Esther a puppy as she refuses to get go of the object. A scream erupts from Esther. At a later time, Kate is showing her the ropes of piano playing. Thereafter, she presses the issue, but she is reticent to discuss the incident that occurred at school. Kate offers Esther a scrapbook that she had begun when the latter inquires about the baby she had to give up. While showing her the roses at the spot where her ashes were spread, Kate explains what occurred. Kate and John have an intimate encounter in the kitchen after supper, assuming the kids are asleep. All of a sudden, Esther is there. Kate visits her the following morning to discuss the matter further. While painting, Esther says she is aware of it and uses the F word, but she doesn't appear to care. In their subsequent conversation, Kate suggests that John accompany her to a therapist. John believes that sending the child to treatment because of a single profanity word is excessive. One of John's neighbors approaches him as the girls play on a swing of the park, trying to woo him. At the same time, Esther's tormentor also enters the playground. John and Esther's conversation with a neighbor takes up most of Esther's time. The bully watches over Esther while she plays in the castle because he is genuinely terrified of her. Esther unexpectedly shoves her, fracturing her leg, just as she is about to slide down the slide. Max observes her perform it. Later that night, while John and Esther are having dinner at the diner, Max verifies the rumor that the girl dozed off. Max and Esther both pray before they eat. Compared to Daniel, she's even more proficient in sign language. He becomes angry with her and begins to insult her before her parents step in. Furious and yelling, he bolts away. As a kind of discipline, John locks his treehouse. Sister Abigail phones Kate later while she and the girls are at the supermarket. Although Esther is adamant about not speaking to Kate, Kate persists. As Max closely observes her lips and repeats what she says to Esther, she takes a step back to inform Sister Abigail about everything that has been going on. To Kate's astonishment, Esther plays the piano flawlessly that night. Esther told the girl that she acted ignorant about the game for her own advantage when the girl asked why. Later that night, Kate and John get into a heated disagreement that quickly escalates because of Esther. In the next room, Esther listens to them, and she is pleased. The residence is visited by Sister Abigail at some point. She suspects Esther may be ill and confides in her parents about her concerns. Some of the things she mentions as possible prior transgressions include inflicting harm on other children. Upon hearing everything, the girl rushes to see Max and begs her for assistance, explaining that the horrible woman is about to abduct her unless Max helps her. While Kate considers the possibility that Abigail may be correct, John believes that she is being overly dramatic. After Kate proposes seeing a therapist, he is on board. While everything is going on, Esther orders Max to locate the treehouse keys, but she ends up taking a revolver from John's safe instead. She empties the handgun of its bullets, leaving only one behind. In a horrifying display of fear, she directs it against Max. Abigail drives away from the house in her car, while Esther accompanies Max to a bridge, promising that they will terrify her to the point that she will never want to return. Abigail shoves Max onto the street just as the car is about to crash. She then spins around, nearly hits the girl, and the car smashes. As Esther swats Max with a hammer, Abigail discovers her sobbing. To get Abigail off the road, she orders Max to assist her. She manages to survive being rolled down, so Esther uses the hammer to put an end to her. They enter the treehouse, where Esther stows the hammer in her blood-stained clothing. According to what she tells Max, she will also be sent to jail simply for assisting her. Afterwards, Esther expresses her love from the heart. As they descend from the treehouse, Daniel notices them, but Esther also spots him. She threatens him with a scalpel that night when she bursts into his room, demanding silence. This little lad goes potty on his own. As Esther waits outside, John and Kate bring her to see Browning, who then speaks to them about her. According to the therapist, Kate is the one who is flawed, not the child. In her view, Kate is taking her frustrations with Esther out on her inadequacy as a mother. John sees her point of view. Sister Abigail has not returned since the previous day, according to a call that Kate receives from the orphanage when they return home. She is located by the police, who discover her body in the same spot Esther had left it. During their conversation, a police officer assures Kate and John that they do not have any suspects. While displaying a macabre artwork of the home and its inhabitants, Esther turns the lights in her aquarium on and off. John sees the results of Kate's internet search for data regarding disturbed youngsters. After he disagrees with her once more, she informs him that she is ending her treatment with Dr. Browning. Concerned about Esther's identity, Kate plans to get in touch with the Russian orphanage from whence she originally came. She learns upon making the call that no documentation of her exists prior to her arrival in the United States. John gets Esther ready to go to the dentist the following day, but she declines, so he says they can reschedule. Esther confides in him her belief that Kate dislikes her while they spend the day painting together. At the same time, Kate is asking the other kids how she is doing when she drives them to school. They are unethical because they claim she has never acted wrongly. Later that night, Esther surprises Kate with a gift by popping into the kitchen. The bucket of roses she receives was collected from the spot where Kate's daughter's ashes were scattered. As Kate becomes furious and reaches out to grab her, John steps in and claims responsibility. Esther breaks her hand in the garage that very night. She gets back into bed and summons John, describing how her arm hurts. He examines it and finds that it has been fractured. Just as he's getting her into bed after their trip to the doctor, Kate walks in. He goes after her, but Kate defends herself by saying she didn't hold on too tightly. 2 bottles of wine are later purchased by her at a liquor store. She drinks just enough to get tipsy before she flushes the remaining wine down the toilet. The next day, Kate takes the children to school in her car. Esther shifts the car into drive while Max is still inside, and Kate rushes over to assist Daniel after his backpack rips as he exits the vehicle. Eventually, the snow stops the automobile, and Kate runs after it. Kate claims she parked the car that night and that Max was covering for Esther while Dr. Browning was at their house. After Esther found the second bottle of wine, John proudly displays it to her. After Kate explains her perspective on the wine, the therapist informs her that she has secured a position for her in a recovery center. Her account of the wine and the accident is untrue in their eyes. John accuses her of deceptive behavior and threatens to depart with the kids if she does not go into rehab within a week. At the same time, Esther threatens to shoot her mom if Max betrays her. After a while, Daniel visits Max in her room, and she fills him in on the details of Abigail and the treehouse. Even while Esther is listening, he still claims he'll get the items from the treehouse. Kate sneaks into Max's room in the middle of the night. Esther switches on the light all of a sudden. They argue, but eventually Esther reveals that she had read her journal by showing her the journal she had been maintaining. Kate is unconvinced despite her attempts to provoke her. When Kate's second attempt at contacting the orphanage yields no results, she decides to retrieve Esther's Bible. Encased in a plush toy, she unearths it and discovers images of males within. When she saw the words Sarn Institute on it, she went online to find out what they meant. The number she contacts turns out to be for a mental institution, not an orphanage, as she had feared. Daniel, meantime, slips out of the home and retrieves the items from the treehouse. Daniel is being followed by Esther, who begins to pour gasoline over the evidence, fires it, and pours gasoline over him again. She confines him to the treehouse that is on fire. His mom is too preoccupied with her investigation of Esther to answer his phone. Cry out for rescue as Daniel climbs onto the roof. While Esther watches, he slips and falls onto the ground after falling onto a wooden beam. In the midst of Esther's plan to kill Daniel with a rock, Kate suddenly sees flames. Kate shows there just in time to stop Max in his tracks after he shoves her aside. Daniel has survived. At the hospital, they are all informed by the doctor that he may not recall what happened due to a severe neck injury. Because of that, Esther is concerned. John is unconvinced after Kate shares her findings concerning Esther. Esther sneaks into Daniel's room as they continue to argue. After realizing what's happening, Max pursues her. While Max goes to fetch her parents, Esther begins to choke Daniel with his pillow. The physicians are able to revive Daniel after the alarm in his room goes off. Kate slaps Esther after confronting her. The orderlies sedate her after grabbing her. An vital phone call flies right by her. When Kate finally gets up, she wants to know where Daniel is. As she spends the night in the hospital, she implores John to keep Esther away from Max. Max removes her hearing aid that night as her father tucks her into bed. As Esther bids her farewell, she rushes in to seize the assistants. Getting drunk in the living room is John's plan. John, bewildered by the events unfolding around him, sits down beside Esther as she descends the stairs clothed as an adult. He avoids Esther's kisses as she begins to plant them. He says his love for her is different from his love for Kate. John orders her to her room, but she begs him to stop treating her like a little girl. He plans to contact the orphanage tomorrow regarding her, he claims. Esther withdraws to her chamber, where she sobs. At the same time, a doctor from the Sarn Institute calls Kate. When he sees Esther, he orders her to phone the police and get her family out of the house. He explains to her that Esther isn't actually a small girl, but rather that she appears to be one due to a hormonal imbalance. Actually, she's a grown woman. As a result of her violent outbursts, Esther suffered scars on both her hands and neck from her struggles with the hospital's shackles. At least 7 individuals have been killed by Kate, according to the doctor. Unsure of how she managed to trick them, Kate is in a hurry to return home. When Esther gets home, she destroys her room and takes off all the cosmetics that made her look like a little girl. When John goes to see how she is doing, he discovers that her artwork is all over the place. Just as Kate is about to contact him on the way home, the power goes out in the house, cutting him off. In her panic, she contacts the authorities. As John searches the home in search of a light, Esther stabs him. Even though he's comatose, she continues to stab him until he dies. When Max spots her, she immediately pursues. Kate slams inside the house on her way to the upstairs and dashes straight for the stairs. After locating John, she learns that Max is in danger and sets out to save her. When she can't locate her in her room, she heads to the restroom. Suddenly, Esther fires a gun at her. While Esther is pounding outside the window, Kate ducks inside her bedroom, where she thankfully remains undiscovered. From her vantage point on the glass roof, Kate watches as Esther approaches Max in the garden, where she has taken refuge. After re-engaging in gunfire, Esther tracks down Max and returns the fire. Max manages to get away just before Kate smashes the glass roof, crushing Esther under her weight. Max gently awakens Kate up a little while later. Leaving Esther behind, she seizes the rifle and lifts her up. Into the forest she steps. Esther is nowhere to be seen when the cops show up and break into the residence. Out of nowhere, she brandishes a knife and chases toward Kate and Max. They tumble onto the ice lake and fight, with Esther chasing Kate nonstop. Max takes aim and fires, shattering the ice. Kate manages to incapacitate Esther after they both tumble inside and battle. Esther reaches out and begs Kate not to let her die as she crawls out, but Kate kicks her back into the lake. Thanks for watching.